I know many of you very well, and it's a real honor, and I'm pretty humbled when David called on me, I think toward the end of July, and started the discussion that's led to me being hired by KCC. And it's nice to kind of be back in the arena of these issues after retiring about 3 years ago from one of my jobs. So I really look forward to working with KCC, and one of my main jobs is just to implement the vision and the task that Pamela laid out. So she went through a lot of the key things: legislative focus, broadening our membership base, recruiting more partners and affiliates, and I think I'd like to look more broadly than just kind of the usual range of environmental conservation organizations, to look more broadly to the types of organizations that share similar goals, maybe more indirectly or through their own agendas: health-based organizations, faith-based groups. There's just a lot of different categories of folks out there who share similar interests. And so one of the early steps will be to inventory all those types of organizations across the state, see which ones make sense, and then begin a systematic routine process to invite them in. And as Pamela mentioned, one of the benefits for the partners, the ones that will contribute something, is we want to be able to tell them that they don't have their own legislative agent, lobbyist in Frankfurt, that on some basis we can offer them that service, because I'll be a registered legislative agent, i.e. a lobbyist as well. So as I'll talk about later in the day on our lobbying legislative strategies, I'll go ahead and mention, we'll kind of have tiers of how I'll spend my time, I think, on lobbying. First tier will be KCC issues. So for this session, it'll be the conservation, Conserving Kentucky legislation, the energy legislation out of KC, and if we generate some biodiversity ideas that we turn into legislation, that would be kind of like tier one. Tier two would be legislation that we have the opportunity to help our partners with. And then I guess if you had a tier three, it would be affiliates who have ideas. And then tier four would be everything else that we still have time to focus on. Fundraising will be a significant issue for us. I was thinking about a line that I heard Lloyd Bentsen, who I think was either from Arizona or New Mexico, Senator Lloyd Bentsen.
Senator
Texas. Yeah. He was in town when he was running for president. I think this was in the 80s. And he was at the Sealback, and he borrowed a line that he said he had heard Ted Kennedy use. And of course, Lloyd Bentsen was making a pitch for money, in part. And he said, I'm deeply touched by the support you all have shown, but not as deeply touched as you will be when I ask for your money. So, we're going to have a methodical process to identify potential donors that will support us in our mission and our causes and financially, and that'll be an important activity as well. David and Pamela both mentioned communication with members. Some of you all have mentioned to me that one of the areas for improvement by the organization is communication with members. And I really intend to make that a priority. A lot of it will be electronic, of course, email, sending you links to the website. We're going to use the website as a key repository for lots of stuff. For example, yesterday, in connection with the city's, or the Festival of Faith that's taking place here in the city, one of the keynote speakers was Gina McCarthy, who's the Assistant Administrator for Air of EPA. That's the top air job. And through some of my work as the city's air pollution director, I got to know Gina. So I kind of used my good offices following a suggestion that David had made, which I initially thought, that's just another goofy David Wicks idea. He spins off 1,000 and, only 900 are good ones, But this was a good one. David had said, you think there's a chance you could interview Gina, do a video interview, and we could put it up on the KCC site? And my first thought was no. But I said, yeah, let's look into that. So yesterday I did about a 10-minute video interview with Gina McCarthy, and we hope to get that up on our website, or at least a link to it. It may go first on the Festival of Faith website. We're not sure, but we want to use video. We want to put good material, good content up on the website. An idea that I've floated to David, and maybe the rest of the executive committee, is I've just been calling it a weekly read. That may not end up being the title of it if we do it, but we've got a lot of good researchers and policy makers in the state that do a lot of research on our issues, and I want to offer the website as a platform for the receipt of research papers and policy pieces, think pieces on our different issues. And we'll just keep if we get one good one a week, we'll recruit from universities, we'll recruit from government, from you all. But I think it's going to be important to keep a steady flow of good content on the website. I may do a weekly blog. I don't think I could get to the point of doing a daily blog. That gets to be a bit much. But we want to do things like that. Maybe offer it as a platform to others. I know Sarah Lynn has a platform through the Courier Journal that you use periodically.
I was going to say maybe you should ask for one too.
David has suggested that. It's on the to-do list.
Yeah.
So those are some of the high points of how I think I'll be spending my time. I don't know if I need to do a brief bio. David touched most of the high points. I'm from Kentucky, born in Bowling Green, grew up in Owensboro, moved to Louisville as a teenager, moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and finished high school there. My dad was with General Motors, and we got moved around a lot. I did my undergraduate and law school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Had a liberal arts degree. I intended to be a physician. That was my goal. And then kind of a collision of several forces, Vietnam War stuff, got involved in campus issues, environmental issues, civil rights issues. And then the coup de grace was organic chemistry. It was like 100 miles an hour hitting that wall. It just was not a pretty sight. And but about the same time, I think my goals were shifting toward, what I thought I could do, and it was clear I couldn't do medical school with the grades I had in organic. So I ended up in law school and did a lot of energy and environmental stuff in law school. Came back to Louisville in '77. My first job was a dual job with the city of Louisville. I was director of the Department of Consumer Affairs, which was a job that had been previously done admirably by Minks Auerbach here in town. And I was also the city's first energy and environment advisor, recruited by a young guy named Bill Bellinger. So I did that from roughly 78 to 80, and then Jackie Swigert, who I'd met, recruited me to come to Frankfort with the Natural Resources Cabinet. So I started there in 80, worked my way up through the legal office over an 8-year period. Did a lot of trial work in the early years, prosecuting people alleged to have committed pollution violations, advising the agencies on various legal issues, carpooling with Sarah Lynn for a while. That was great fun. It wasn't great fun, the actual, 2 hours a day, but it was fun carpooling with Sarah Lynn.
Really cheesy versus
Yeah, I still do. Love it. So I ended up as general counsel for a while, the top legal job, and then I was asked to be commissioner of the Department for Environmental Protection, which has the divisions of air, water, and waste in the laboratory, and I did that for about 2 years, from 88 to 90. Then I got recruited by a law firm in Louisville, Woodward, Hobson, and Fulton, and I came back to Louisville and joined their firm for about 7 years, doing environmental stuff. Some industry, but also neighborhood groups and some plaintiffs' work. Sued MSD was one of my big cases where I used the Endangered Species Act to bludgeon MSD over the head. We contended there might be some running buffalo clover, and we used the late Hal Bryant, who had Ecotech, to do mist netting, and we found a, hey Bruce, glad you could join us. This is Bruce Williams, our lobbyist for years.
Bummed up lobbyist.
We found a lactating Indiana bat, which is like the gold mine. You know, because it's a federally endangered species. You know, it's a pregnant endangered species. So this was in connection with MSD trying to build the North County Action Plan and put a sewer line across my client's property. We held them at bay for about 3 years, but eventually they kind of got what they wanted. So I did that for 7 years. Then I got recruited back into government by Judge Armstrong and Bruce Trauber to be the city's air pollution director. I did that from '96 to 2008, and I retired. And then I did about a year of consulting with a Northeast nonprofit called the Regulatory Assistance Project, where I focused on China energy and environmental issues, and got to go to China twice for about 6 weeks, working directly with the Chinese government, which was a trip on national energy policies, national air quality policies. Noel got to go. You were there for 3 weeks on one of the trips, so Noel got to see 3 weeks worth of Beijing. That was a lot of fun. One of our high points was we got to play ping pong in a public park with Chinese people watching us, like, they think that's ping pong? But we had fun. And then I've done about 2 years worth of work with the Sierra Club. I was recruited by Wallace and Joan, and I guess Leslie Barris was part of the team, in part to become part of the National Sierra Club's international climate change team through the United Nations process. And I had already done a lot of that as air director. I was very involved at the international and national level on climate change, and had gone to Kyoto and then about 6 or 7 other of the United Nations conferences. And so I went to Copenhagen and Cancun on behalf of the Sierra Club, and got very involved in that through their good offices. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity they presented me, and I was kind of scheduled to go back to Durban, South Africa, which is coming up at the end of the month for the next UN conference, but unfortunately I just couldn't see a way of reconciling doing this job effectively and also continuing to be pretty heavily involved in international climate change. So with some degree of regret, I've kind of set that work aside while I concentrate on Kentucky issues, which is really a lot of fun. You know, and I'll probably work on, you know, climate change is fundamentally an energy issue, and I usually give talks about climate change in Kentucky. And one of my throwaway lines after I came back from Kyoto was that the General Assembly had actually made it a felony to say the word Kyoto in the state. Oh. And you know, so if this stuff was easy, it wouldn't be fun. And Kentucky's got to be one of the hardest states in the nation to try and advance progressive energy climate change policies because of the long legacy of dominance by the fossil fuel industry. But you know, if this were Massachusetts, I probably wouldn't have taken the job. You know,
It's a challenge.
It is a challenge.